There are football matches and then there is El Clásico. It's a fixture that, just transcends the 90 minutes. A rivalry that runs deeper than the league table. Real Madrid versus Barcelona isn't just about two of the biggest clubs in the world going head-to-head. It's a clash of cities, cultures, and ideologies. It's a contest steeped in political history. A story of regional identity versus the establishment, played out on the grandest stage of them all. When these two giants meet, you're not just watching a game, you're witnessing a spectacle, pure theater that grips hundreds of millions around the globe. The name itself, El Clásico, tells you everything you need to know about its stature. It wasn't always called this, but the label stuck because it perfectly captures the weight of history behind every single encounter. From the days of the Spanish Civil War to the modern era of global superstars, this match has always been a focal point for Spanish society. It's where footballing philosophies are put to the ultimate test. The perceived aristocratic flair of Madrid against the collective, almost socialist artistry of Barcelona. It's a narrative that's been building for over a century. So we're not just going to look at score lines and statistics. We're going to delve into the moments that defined eras, the matches that became legends in their own right. We'll explore 5 iconic Clásicos that show why this fixture is about so much more than goals and glory. From tactical masterclasses to individual acts of breathtaking genius, these are the games that tell the story of football's greatest rivalry. It's a story of history, philosophy, and unforgettable drama. Let's get into it. Right. Let's start with a match that, for many, represents the absolute zenith of a particular style of football. November 2010, the Camp Nou. Pep Guardiola's Barcelona against Jose Mourinho's Real Madrid. This wasn't just a clash of managers, it was a collision of worlds. Guardiola, the architect of tiki-taka, the local boy who had built arguably the greatest club side we've ever seen. And Mourinho, the self-proclaimed special one, the master of pragmatism and disruption, brought to Madrid for one reason, to topple the Catalan kings. The backdrop was electric. Spain had just won the World Cup, and the core of that team was right here, split between these two sides. You had Xavi, Iniesta, Puyol, and Piqué in Blaugrana, facing their international teammates Casillas, Ramos, and Alonso. And then, of course, there was the personal duel, Lionel Messi against Cristiano Ronaldo. The two best players in the world, the defining figures of their generation, leading their respective armies. The tension, the anticipation, it was palpable. You felt something historic was on the line. From the first whistle, it was clear this was going to be one-way traffic. Barcelona's passing carousel started spinning, and Madrid simply couldn't get near them. Xavi opened the scoring after just 10 minutes, a deft touch from an Iniesta cross. It was a classic Barca goal, intricate, patient, and deadly. You could see the confidence flowing through them. They were playing on a different plane, moving the ball with a speed and precision that was just mesmerizing to watch. Madrid, for all their power and talent, were reduced to chasing shadows. Pedro made it 2 before the 20-minute mark, and the game was already feeling out of reach for Mourinho's men. The Portuguese manager, usually so animated on the touchline, looked stunned. His game plan, whatever it was, had been completely dismantled in the opening quarter of the match. The possession stats were almost comical. Barcelona were not just beating Madrid, they were giving them a footballing lesson, a death by 1,000 cuts. Every pass felt like a statement. The second half brought no respite. David Villa, who had joined from Valencia, scored twice in 3 minutes just before the hour mark. Both goals were textbook examples of Barcelona's system. The first, a perfectly timed run to meet a pass from Messi. The second, another Messi assist, threading the ball through with impossible accuracy. Villa's finishes were clinical, but the goals belonged to the collective. It was the system in full glorious flow, and Madrid had no answer. The frustration began to boil over. You saw it in the tackles, the little shoves off the ball. Sergio Ramos in particular was on a knife edge. The Madrid players were being humiliated, and they knew it. The Camp Nou was a cauldron of noise, every ole a dagger to the heart of the visitors. This was more than a defeat. It was an embarrassment on a global scale. Mourinho's first Clásico was turning into an absolute nightmare, and there was nothing he could do to stop the bleeding. The fifth goal came in stoppage time, scored by the substitute, Jeffrey. It was the icing on the cake, but the symbolism of that fifth goal was immense. Gerard Piqué, ever the showman, raised his hand to the crowd, fingers outstretched. The manita, the little hand. 5 fingers for 5 goals. It was a gesture that would become iconic, a symbol of total and utter dominance, a taunt that would echo for years. The final whistle was almost a mercy. It ended 5-0. Mourinho suffered the heaviest defeat of his managerial career. For Barcelona, it was the ultimate validation of their philosophy. They had shown the world that their beautiful football wasn't just pretty, it was devastatingly effective. This wasn't just a win, it was a statement of artistic and sporting superiority that defined an era. Ramos's frustration finally culminated in a wild hack on Messi, earning him a straight red card in the dying moments. The ensuing melee, with Puyol and Xavi trying to calm things down, was a perfect snapshot of the match Barcelona in control, Madrid losing their heads completely. It was a brutal end to a brutal evening for the capital club. Looking back, that match was the high watermark of Guardiola's Barca. It was the moment their philosophy was realized in its most perfect form against their most formidable rival. They didn't just win, they imposed their identity on the game so completely that the result felt inevitable from the first 10 minutes. It was a performance that wasn't just for the present, it was for the history books. For a player like me, who played up front, you appreciate all types of goals. But what was staggering here was the sheer control. The way they created chances wasn't about luck or a moment of magic. It was a process. It was about moving the opposition until a gap appeared, and then exploiting it with ruthless precision. That 5-0 victory was more than a result. It was a manifesto. Now, let's fast forward to 2014, the Copa del Rey final at the Mestalla in Valencia. The script was completely flipped. This time, it was Carlo Ancelotti's Real Madrid against Tata Martino's Barcelona, and crucially, Madrid were without their talisman. Cristiano Ronaldo was out injured, watching from the stands. All the pressure, all the expectation, fell on the shoulders of the then world's most expensive player, Gareth Bale. Barcelona were in a bit of a transitional phase. The Guardiola era was over, and they were searching for a new identity under Martino. They still had Messi, Neymar, Iniesta and Xavi, but that aura of invincibility had faded slightly. Madrid, on the other hand, were building something formidable under Ancelotti. They were a powerful, counter-attacking machine, and this final was a chance to land a major psychological blow. The game started at a frantic pace, as Clásicos always do. Madrid struck first, a lightning-quick breakaway, Isco finding Benzema, who slid in Angel Di Maria. The Argentine winger, who was magnificent that season, fired a low shot that Pinto, in the Barca goal, probably should have done better with. 1-0 to Madrid. It was a classic counter-attacking goal, a sign of what was to come. Barcelona, as you'd expect, responded by dominating possession. They pressed and probed, trying to find a way through Madrid's disciplined defensive lines. But Madrid were happy to sit back, absorb the pressure, and wait for their moment to spring forward. It was a tactical battle, a game of patience and nerve. For long periods, it looked like Madrid's plan was working to perfection. Then, midway through the second half, Barcelona found their breakthrough. A corner kick, a bit of a scramble, and the ball fell to Marc Bartra. The young centre-back of all people rose highest to head the ball into the back of the net. 1-1. The Barca fans erupted. Bartra, who had been given the unenviable task of marking Bale, was the unlikely hero. It felt like the momentum had swung back to the Catalans. The game was heading towards extra time. Both teams were tiring. The pace had dropped. You felt it was going to take a moment of individual brilliance or a costly mistake to decide it. With just 5 minutes of normal time remaining, we got that moment. And what a moment it was. It's one of those goals that you will never, ever forget. The move started deep in Madrid's half. Coentrao played a simple pass forward to Bale on the left touchline. Bartra came across to challenge him, and it looked like a standard 50-50. Bale knocked the ball forward, and Bartra did well to shoulder him off the pitch. For a split second, it looked like the attack was over. Bartra had forced him out of play. But Bale had other ideas. He was pushed several yards off the field, but he just kept running. He ran around Bartra, off the pitch, like a cartoon character leaving a puff of smoke behind. The sheer acceleration was astonishing. He re-entered the field of play, back in line with Bartra, but now he was ahead of him. He had the ball at his feet and was bearing down on goal. Bartra, who had just scored the equalizer, was now in a desperate foot race with one of the fastest players on the planet. He couldn't keep up. Bale powered into the penalty area, held off the recovering defender, and with the composure of a seasoned striker, poked the ball through Pinto's legs and into the net. It was an absolutely staggering goal. The celebration was as iconic as the goal itself. The roar from the Madrid fans, the sight of Bale wheeling away in triumph. Ancelotti and his coaching staff, including Zinedine Zidane, erupting on the bench. In the stands, a suited Cristiano Ronaldo was on his feet, celebrating wildly. It was a goal worthy of winning any final, let alone a Clásico. It proved so much. It proved that this Madrid side wasn't just about Ronaldo. It announced Gareth Bale on the biggest stage, justifying his enormous price tag in one explosive 60-yard sprint. It was a goal that encapsulated Madrid's identity at that time. Raw power, blistering speed, and ruthless efficiency on the counter-attack. It broke Barcelona's hearts and secured the cup for Madrid. For Marc Bartra, it was a cruel twist of fate. He went from hero to a footnote in someone else's legend in the space of about 20 minutes. That's the brutal nature of football at this level. But for Bale, and for Real Madrid, it was a defining moment. A goal that wasn't just scored, it was forged from pure physical dominance and an unbreakable will to win. Let's wind the clock back a little to 2009. Pep Guardiola's first season in charge of Barcelona. People forget now, but he was a massive gamble. He'd only managed the B team. He came in, sold off superstars like Ronaldinho and Deco, and put his faith in youth and a radical tactical system. By the time they travelled to the Santiago Bernabéu in May, they were in a tight title race with a very strong Real Madrid side. Madrid, under Juan de Ramos, were on an incredible run of 17 wins from 18 league games. They were breathing down Barca's neck. This match was billed as the title decider. The Bernabéu was buzzing, confident that they could derail the Guardiola project and reclaim the league title. It was a high-stakes game, and the pressure on the young Barcelona manager was immense. The match started perfectly for the home side. Gonzalo Higuain headed them in front after 14 minutes from a Sergio Ramos cross. The stadium erupted. It felt like business as usual. Madrid were ahead, and their momentum looked unstoppable. But what happened next would change the course of Spanish football for years to come. Guardiola had a tactical surprise up his sleeve. Just 4 minutes after Madrid scored, Thierry Henry equalized for Barcelona. But it was the second goal that was the real masterstroke. Pep had instructed Lionel Messi, who had traditionally played on the right wing, to operate as a false nine. He dropped deep into midfield, leaving the Madrid centre-backs, Cannavaro and Metzelder, with nobody to mark. They were completely bewildered. For the second goal, Xavi picked up the ball in midfield, looked up, and saw Messi dropping into a pocket of space. The centre-backs didn't know whether to follow him or hold their position. By the time they hesitated, it was too late. Xavi threaded a perfect pass-through. Carles Puyol ran onto it, and the Barcelona captain powered a header past Iker Casillas. It was a goal straight from the training ground, a tactical masterclass unfolding in real time. From that moment on, Barcelona were rampant. Messi, in his new role, was unplayable. He scored just before half-time, making it 3-1 after dispossessing Lassana Diarra. Madrid were shell-shocked. Their entire defensive structure had been pulled apart by one simple but revolutionary tactical tweak. The Bernabéu was stunned into silence. Madrid did pull one back early in the second half through Sergio Ramos, making it 3-2. For a moment, it seemed like a comeback could be on, but Barcelona and Messi were relentless. Just 2 minutes later, Henry grabbed his second to restore the two-goal cushion. The pass from Xavi was sublime, but the movement and the confidence of the whole team were on another level. Then Messi stepped up again, scoring his second and Barcelona's fifth. The tiki-taka football was in full swing. The passing was quick, incisive, and Madrid were chasing ghosts. The game was over as a contest. But Barcelona weren't finished. Gerard Piqué, the centre-back, ambled forward and found himself in the penalty area, stroking home the sixth goal of the evening. It finished 6-2. 6. At the home of their greatest rivals. It was a humiliation of historic proportions. As the final goals went in, you could see some of the Madrid fans in the stands actually applauding. They weren't just applauding the goals, they were applauding the football. They knew they were witnessing something special, even if it was at their own team's expense. This result didn't just secure the league title for Barcelona, it was the moment the world truly sat up and took notice of Guardiola's revolution. It was the birth of the Messi as a false nine era, a move that would lead to him scoring an astronomical number of goals. It set the tone for the next 4 years of dominance. It was a tactical demolition. It showed that Guardiola wasn't just a philosopher, he was a ruthless winner. To go to the Bernabéu in your first season in a title-deciding match and win 6-2, it's the stuff of legend. It was a statement of intent, and it laid the foundation for the intense rivalry that would define the Guardiola, Mourinho, and Messi-Ronaldo years. A truly seismic result. Let's go back to 2002. The Champions League semi-final, first leg. For the first time in the modern era, El Clásico was being played on the biggest stage in European football. This was the era of the Galacticos at Real Madrid. Florentino Perez had assembled a team of superstars: Zidane, Figo, Raúl, Roberto Carlos. Their mission was to win the club's 9th European Cup in the club's centenary year. Barcelona, by contrast, were in a difficult period. They hadn't won a major trophy in 3 years. The pressure was on. The first leg was at the Camp Nou, and the atmosphere was incredibly hostile. This was Luis Figo's return to Barcelona in a Madrid shirt in the Champions League. The last time he'd played there, he'd had a pig's head thrown at him. The animosity was off the charts. Madrid were managed by Vicente del Bosque, a calming influence in a dressing room full of massive egos. He set his team up to be solid, to withstand the early storm that was sure to come from Barcelona, and to hit them with moments of individual brilliance. And with players like Zidane in your team, you always had a chance of producing that magic. The game itself was a tense, cagey affair for long periods. Barcelona had more of the ball, but they struggled to break down a well-organized Madrid defense, marshaled by the brilliant Fernando Hierro. Madrid were disciplined, patient, waiting for their opportunity. It was a high-stakes chess match, with neither side wanting to make the first mistake. The breakthrough came 10 minutes into the second half, and it was pure Galactico quality. Raúl, who was always a thorn in Barcelona's side, picked up the ball in midfield. He spotted the run of Zinedine Zidane. The pass was good, but what Zidane did next was sublime. He saw the goalkeeper, Roberto Bernabéu, slightly off his line. With incredible technique and audacity, Zidane produced a delicate chip over the keeper. It was a moment of genius, a goal of stunning beauty that silenced the 98,000 fans inside the Camp Nou. The ball just seemed to float into the net. It was the kind of goal that only a player of his caliber could even conceive of, let alone execute in a Champions League semi-final. That away goal was a dagger to the heart of Barcelona. It changed the entire complexion of the tie. Now Barcelona had to chase the game, leaving themselves vulnerable to Madrid's lethal counterattacks. The home crowd grew restless, their frustration mounting as their team failed to create clear-cut chances against the resolute Madrid backline. You could feel the belief draining from the Barcelona players and fans and flowing into Del Bosque's side. They were in complete control. They had weathered the storm, got their precious away goal, and now they were managing the game with the experience and quality that defined that Galactico team. As the game entered stoppage time, Madrid sealed a historic victory. A long ball forward was chased down by the substitute, Steve McManaman. The ex-Liverpool man found himself one-on-one with Bernabéu, and just like Zidane, he produced an exquisite chip to make it 2-0. It was another moment of supreme composure and quality. To win 2-0 at the Camp Nou in a Champions League semi-final was a monumental achievement. It was Madrid's first victory there in almost 20 years. The image of the Madrid players celebrating in a nearly empty, silent stadium was incredibly powerful. They had come into the lion's den and completely tamed the lion. That victory effectively killed the tie. Madrid went on to draw the second leg 1-1 at the Bernabéu and progressed to the final, where Zidane would score that volley against Bayer Leverkusen. But it was this victory, this clinical and masterful performance at the home of their rivals, that paved the way. It was the Galacticos at their peak, proving that style could be matched with substance and a ruthless winning mentality. A truly defining night in their history. For our final match, we have to go all the way back to 1974. To understand the importance of this one, you have to understand the context. Spain was still under the dictatorship of General Franco, a regime that had brutally suppressed regional identities, particularly in Catalonia. For many Catalans, FC Barcelona was more than a football club. It was a symbol of their culture, their language, and their resistance. Real Madrid, on the other hand, were seen by many as the club of the establishment, the team of the capital and the regime. So, when these two teams played, it was never just about football. It was a deeply political and cultural event. And in the 1973-74 season, Barcelona had a new weapon, a skinny, elegant Dutchman by the name of Johan Cruyff. Cruyff's arrival had completely transformed the team. He was a revolutionary figure, a player who thought about the game in a way nobody else did. He brought with him a philosophy of total football from his time at Ajax. Barcelona had been struggling, but with Cruyff pulling the strings, they went on a long unbeaten run and were flying high at the top of the league when they travelled to the Bernabéu in February 1974. Madrid were the reigning champions, but they were in disarray. Barcelona, led by their Dutch maestro, were playing with a freedom and a style that was breathtaking. The anticipation for this game was enormous. Could Cruyff lead Barcelona to a victory at the heart of the establishment? What followed was more than a victory. It was a coronation. Barcelona was simply on another level. They played with an arrogance and a confidence that stunned the Bernabéu. Asensi opened the scoring, but it was Cruyff who was running the show. He was everywhere, dropping deep, spraying passes, and directing the entire performance. Just before halftime, he scored a goal that has become legendary. He received the ball on the edge of the box, surrounded by Madrid defenders. With a shimmy and a feint, he somehow ghosted past three of them in a space that didn't seem to exist. It was like they were moving in slow motion, and he was on another frequency. He then coolly slotted the ball past the goalkeeper. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated genius. The second half was a procession. Asensi scored again, Juan Carlos got on the score sheet, and Hugo Sotil rounded off the scoring to make it 5-0. 5-0 at the Bernabéu. The result sent shockwaves across Spain. It was a humiliation for Madrid, but for Barcelona and for Catalonia, it was a moment of immense pride and catharsis. The Dutch manager, Rinus Michels, who had brought Cruyff with him from Ajax, had masterminded a tactical demolition. The total football concept, where any player could play in any position, had completely bamboozled Madrid. They had no answer to the fluidity, the movement, and the technical brilliance of this Barcelona side. This victory was so much more than 3 points. It effectively sealed Barcelona's first league title in 14 years. But its cultural impact was even greater. In a time of political oppression, this 5-0 win was seen as a victory for Catalonia over the Francoist state. It was a powerful statement that their identity could not be crushed. Cruyff became a hero, a savior. He had given the people a reason to believe, a moment of joy and defiance. He even named his son Jordi, a Catalan name, which was a significant political act at the time. The 1974 5-0 is arguably the most important Clásico in Barcelona's history because of what it represented off the pitch. It was the day that Johan Cruyff, the player, cemented his legendary status at the club. But more importantly, it was the day that the seeds of the modern Barcelona identity were planted. The philosophy he brought as a player, he would later instill as a manager, creating the dream team and laying the groundwork for the successes of Guardiola and Messi. This match wasn't just a result, it was the start of a revolution. So there you have it. 5 matches, 5 unique stories, but all part of the same epic saga. From the political defiance of Cruyff's 5-0 in '74 to the tactical purity of Guardiola's Manita, from the individual brilliance of Zidane to the sheer force of nature that was Gareth Bale's sprint. Each game is a chapter in a story that is constantly being written. El Clásico is not just a football match. It's a reflection of society, a clash of philosophies, and a stage for the greatest players in history to carve their names into legend. It's a rivalry that defines clubs, shapes careers, and captivates the world. It's a living, breathing thing. The narrative is always evolving, with new heroes and villains emerging with every season. The tension, the drama, the history, it all comes together twice a year, at the very least, to produce something truly special. It's the benchmark against which all other rivalries are measured, a spectacle that shows why we call football the beautiful game. It's more than goals and glory. It's about identity, pride, and a story that will continue for generations to come. This is the essence of El Clásico. But that's just a handful of my favorite moments. The beauty of this rivalry is that everyone has their own. So I want to hear from you. What is your most memorable El Clásico? Was it a goal, a save, a moment of skill, or just the atmosphere of a game you watched with friends and family? Let me know down in the comments below. I'd love to read them. Thanks for watching.